Okay guys, in last session we discussed about views, group by class, having and difference between where and having, and we also discussed about joins and different constraints available in the SQL Server. Today we're going to discuss about mostly today and tomorrow. I mean, this is a pretty big concept. We have so many functions available in SQL Server. We're going to discuss about functions in this session, and if required in next session too. Okay, there are mainly two types of functions. One is aggregate functions and the other one is scalar functions. Okay, the aggregate functions, let me type the same, aggregate. It is applied for a group of data. It's not for a single value, single cell. Let's say I have a table with 3 columns. Aggregate functions can be applied to group of data, or let's say on a particular column. I have a marks column in the table. If I apply sum of marks, sum is a function here, it will apply on the complete column and it will return the data. That means it applies on the data values from a column or group of data values from a column. So in short, group of data. Okay, it cannot be applied for a single value. The next function is scalar. So it's a single valued one. Single valued in the sense it's the one that is not going to return is the single value. The input parameter for the function is a single value. What is the input parameter? Let's discuss about that before going in depth into the functions concepts. So let's say this is a function. Sum is a function. If I pass sum of 10, it doesn't make any sense. So I'm asking it to sum the value 10 and return the same. So this is the input parameter, whatever you're passing to the function called sum in this case. So sum is not a scalar. Whenever the value that you're passing to the function is a single value, then it is a scalar function. Where you are passing more than one value, then it is a aggregate function. Let me tell you examples for the both. So let's say I have a column called marks. If I pass sum of marks, so I'm passing a complete column values to the function sum. This is not a single value. The values that I'm gonna get is maybe more than one. Okay, so this is called multi-valued, group of data. So when the input parameter, this is the input parameter, what the input parameter that I'm passing to the function is a group of data, then those functions are called aggregate functions, whereas the single valued functions, it is, let's say, uCase or upper. Upper is a function which is a scalar function. So the input parameter, the value that we have to pass this one can be a single value like test. I'm passing the single value test, T-E-S-T, to the function upper. So it will convert the value test to the uppercase. That is the function upper is meant for. So this sum function will be applied on group of values, whereas this is on every row. Let me show you an example. Before going to that, let me see what are all the tables available in this database. Select star from, I think leave details is there. Let me go with this. If you see this, if I apply lower of this column is approved, then it will evaluate the value for each and every column, each and every row item. In the same way, if I apply sum for the column number of days, it will not apply for each and every cell. What it is going to do is it is going to apply for all the cells and return the value. Let me show you the same example. So here I am giving sum of number of days. So when I execute this, it is returning one value by applying the sum function on the complete set of data. So this is why it is called as aggregate function. Now let's see an example for scalar function. I'm going for lower and is approved. So is approved is having capital letters now. Let me execute this and you can see it is applying for each row item. The scalar function applies for each value. The input will be single value, whereas for the aggregate functions the input will be multi-value. So keeping this one up aside, now we're gonna discuss about aggregate functions and scalar functions. Now let's start with aggregate functions. So there are a couple of aggregate functions which we need to know, which are very important functions, I can say. Let me list out the same. The first aggregate functions, under that I have sum is one important one, and the next one is max, third one is min, fourth one is average, fifth one is count, and sixth one is count underscore big. So it is very important to have an idea about all the aggregate functions I have listed here. So let me go back to the last session. In last session we discussed about group by statements. Group by is nothing but aggregated data, right? Let me write a simple select statement which is having group by, or let me go back and fetch the group by query where I have applied. So here there is some group by. Let me get a query. Fine, this query I'm taking. So let me execute the same. Here if you see, you have some function already applied in this example. While discussing about group by statements, we have discussed about some function too. Now if you see, if I don't have this sum function here, and if I apply group by, what it will do is it will take the distinct records. Okay, it will take the distinct employee names from the employee by joining with the so and so. If I don't have this group by part, and if I execute the same query now, you can see what are all the distinct records available in the what are all the number of records that are available in the database. Everything will be listed here. So there are total of 7 records. When I apply group by, it is getting only the distinct records. Now this is the aggregated set. This is the distinct set, I can call it as. Whenever you are using group by, okay, you can use aggregate function. Let's say sum of number of days. So whenever you are grouping the data, this means, okay, get me the total number of days leaves taken by the employee Lokesh, Rupesh, Venki and Vinay. I want to see the data based on group by every employee name. This is not mandatory that whenever you use group by you have to go for aggregate functions. In other words, I can say like this. I can say like, whenever you have a aggregate function, let's say in this case this is the aggregate function. Whenever you have an aggregate function in the select list, then all the remaining columns apart from the aggregate functions should be in the group by. This is how I can reframe it. Okay, rephrase it. So whenever you have any aggregate function in your select statement, like the case you have here in the in this particular query, that is some function of number of days, and if you have any other column apart from having the aggregate function, then that column should be in the group by part, or else it will not return the data. Let me delete this and try to execute the query. It will say there is a column that is present, that is a non-aggregate function column is present in the select list which is not part of group by. So this is how this is the relationship between the group by and the aggregate functions. Now for some time, let's ignore the group by part and let's concentrate on only functions. Let's see one by one. First, we're going to discuss about sum function. So sum function is pretty straightforward one. Let me name it as function, sum function. So what this one will do is, it will sum the total row, total column and return the data. So select sum of, this is how you can declare sum of number of days from leave details. So if I execute this query, the output is the number of days, the sum of number of days. How many days are there in the table? It will return the same. So it will take the column and it will apply the sum of rows, and it will return the result set. And if you want to cross check the same whether it is returning the correct value or not, just do it without number of without the sum function and execute both so that you can compare. So this one is returning 26 records, and the total records that are present in the table is 8. That is 2 plus 3, 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 13 up to here, 15, 18, 19, 22, and plus 4, 26, and the same is returning here. So the sum function will apply the sum on the complete table and returns the data. What will happen if I have a where condition here, where employee ID is equal to 1. So what it will do is, first it will apply the where condition and then it will apply the sum function. So it is simple. So let's cross check the same whether it is returning the perfect data or not. The number of days that is returned for the employee ID 1 is 13. So to cross check the same, let me execute the query with the ID and so. So this is the number of records we have for the employee ID 1. 4 plus 4 plus 2 plus 3, it is 13. So this is how the sum function works. Now let's go to the next function, that is max function. As the name says, max function will return the maximum value. And keep one point here, sum function, it can be applied only on integer or floating values or decimal values. So you cannot apply on the textual information. Let's say for example, I'm applying on is approved. Sometimes it will convert and return the data, but here if you see, operand data type character is invalid for sum operator. So you cannot apply for this kind of data. So this is wrong one. Okay, similarly if you apply the same for the dates, it will throw error saying that it is not a valid data type. It is not this column is not having valid data type. Now let's see the max function. I will apply the same query whatever I have taken for the sum function, but instead of sum I'm giving max. So what it will do is, it will try to get it will sort everything. It will not sort, it will take all the values and it will get the maximum value that is present in the column. So the maximum value that is present in this column is 4, and hence it is returning the 4. Now what will happen if I apply the same on some textual information or some dates, leave from? So it will return the dates. Why? Because there is no restriction like you have to apply on only integer columns or something. You can get the textual information also using the max function. It will retrieve the maximum value. How it will retrieve? If you pass a textual string, it will calculate in such a way that it will order everything in the ascending order and it will get the maximum value. for a better example, I'll do one thing. I'll go to the other table, employee, where I have employee name. So employee name is the textual information, and if I execute the same now, it is getting Vinay. The reason is Vinay is the, if you order everything by employee name, Vinay will be the last one. Order by employee name, and here I'm taking out the max function I have used. Okay. Now let me execute this query, and you can see the minimum one is Lokesh and the maximum one is Vinay. What it has done, it will first order in ascending order, and then it will take the last value, maximum value. Okay. So this is how the max function works. Max function can be applied on either integer values, decimal values, date values, or string values. So to save the time, the next function is min function. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy the same queries so that the time will be saved. So same queries, whenever I execute, I will change it to min. So now I'm executing the minimum number of days leaves taken by any employee, that is 2, and I'm checking for the date from. Leave from, what is the minimum date? The minimum date is 23/1/2012, that is present in the particular column leave, with the name leave from in the table leave details. And now minimum of is approved. It should be no. Why? Because maximum is yes, but why it is showing y here? The reason is there is only one value in this table, I guess. There is only one value, that is y. You can see it here. Oops, sorry. Yeah, my apologies. I have not changed the function name. That is the problem. And now I change the function name. You can see the minimum is n. Why? Because the maximum is y if you go by alphabetical order. Now I'm going with the employee name. As per the ascending order query, the minimum value should be Lokesh. And let's see whether it is gonna return Lokesh or not. Yes, it is returning. So this is how we can go for sum, max, and min functions. Now let's see how the average function works and how it differs from the sum function. The next one is average function. So average function is nothing but the sum of values divided by number of rows. Before going to this average function, let's discuss about one more function, that is count, which may be useful while discussing about average function. So let's start the count. Discussing about the count function first, and then average. What count function will do? Select. This is how you can specify count function, count of star from, let's say, leave details. And I want this query. I will execute both the queries at the same time. The count will give the number of rows present in the particular table, whatever we have given. Here the table I have given is leave details, and if you see there are 8 rows present, you can see it here in the bottom right. And the same 8 is written as part of the count star. So that means count function is used to get the number of records that are present in a particular table. So this count of star is equal to count of any column. Let's say leave ID. If a table is having, if I count based on the leave ID, it remains the same 8. If I count based on this, why? Because I cannot have only one column value without having values for the different. So if a row is created at least with one column, then the count will come into picture. So if you see, either you can specify count of star or count of any particular column name to retrieve the count of rows that are present in any table. And in short, you can also use column number 1, 2, 3, 4. So it remains the same. So this is how you can get the count, and this is the use of count function. Count function is mainly used to get the number of rows that are present in the table. And as I showed you for the sum, you can apply the where condition for this one too, where employee ID is equal to 1. Let's see how many records are there for the employee ID. There are 4 records where employee ID is equal to 1. This is how you can use the count function. Now let's go to the average function. So average, you might have studied about this in your 6th standard or 7th standard. Average is equal to sum divided by count, right? So I'm gonna do the same. Select sum of marks, sorry, number of days leave divided by count of star from leave details. So what I'm doing here, I'm just executing a query which will get the sum of a particular row number of days. Okay, sum of number of days will give me the number of days, number of leaves taken by all the employees, and this one will return the count of rows. So let's see, the average per person is 3, and now let's try to see the same. The total number of days is taken by these guys is 26. 26 by 8, sorry, 24. 24 by 8 is 3, right? Or 26 by 8 is 3, round figure. So this is how the average you can calculate using the sum and count functions. In simple, you can use average of column name instead of going for two functions. One is sum and the one is count to calculate the average. You can go for avg function, which will act in the same way. So I'm taking leave details. So if you see these two queries, both are returning the same output. Average of number of days or average of a particular column is equal to sum of the particular column divided by count of all the rows. So sum will get the sum of the records and count will get the count of the records. Sorry, sum will give the sum of the values in the column, whereas count will give the number of records in the column, and average will give the same, this divided by that. So this is how the average function works. Average function is used to calculate the average. For example, if a student attended examinations and he scored some marks like 50, 30, 20, 90, 10 and 80. So the average mark, the sum of marks will be like 350 out of 600, whereas average will be a different figure. Okay, 360 by 6, the number of subjects is 6, so it should be 360 by 6, that is 60 marks is the average. So the average is different from sum, and this is how you can calculate the average function. Now the next function, the very rarely you will use this, we will not use this count big function that frequently. So count big function is nothing but it is similar to count function. Select count of star from leave details. So this one, and the next query is count underscore big. So both are returning the same. Then what is the difference between these two? Count will return only integer type, okay, which is limited to some integer value, and count big will be returning big int data type. Big int data type will hold bigger value than the count. For example, let's say you have a table which is having 50 crore of records. Okay, this counts big data. 50 crore of records are there, and if you write the count function, if you use the count function, it will error out. Why? Because it is not able to hold such a big value. It is not able to return such a big value. In those cases, you have to go for count underscore big function, then count function for small tables. Counts big data. So this is the difference between count function and count big function. Apart from this, the remaining properties like applying where condition and so on will remain the same for both the functions. Okay, now let's try to apply everything in one select statement with a group by. It is not mandatory that you have to go for only one aggregate function in a select statement. So I have already copied a group by statement here. This is my group by. I want to see here. I'll name it as everything in one. So I'm taking sum of number of days, comma, count of number of days, comma, I'll give max of number of days, comma, min of number of days, comma, and then what is that? Average of number of days, and you know the count big. Count big will act the same way. Count big of number of days. So if you observe here, I have so many aggregate functions used in the same select statement. Sum I used, count I used, max, min, average, and count big. What else is left? All aggregate functions are used here. So there is only one column which is non-aggregating column, which is not which is not using any aggregate function. So this column should be present in the group by. So that is the rule of group by statement. Now let me execute. So Lokesh guy has applied 2 days leave, and the number of records present is only 1, and maximum number of leaves taken is 2. Minimum is also 2. Why? Because he has only 1 record, and average is also 2. Why? Because 2 divided by 1, and finally the number of records he applied is 1. If you go to Rupesh, he has taken 13 days leave in total, and the maximum is 4 days and the minimum is also 4 days. How come it? Sorry, count is 4 records, maximum is 4 days, minimum is 2 days, and average is 3 days. That is number of records, sorry, number of leaves divided by number of records. 13 divided by 4, or what is that? Count of and sum of. Yeah, 13 divided by 4, it comes to 3. 3 fours are 12, and it is rounded. And the count big of number of days is 4. So this is how you can apply more than one aggregate function in the select statement, and by having a non-aggregate column in the select statement which needs to be added to the group by statements. And one more point to note here is it is not mandatory. It is not mandatory to apply all the functions on the same column. Here in my case, this is the only integer column I have, I think. So let me go for leave ID is the maximum column, and minimum is employee ID. I think I have employee ID. So like this, it is not mandatory that you have to use only one column in all the aggregated functions that you have used in the same select statement. I think this is the leave details dot. Okay, so now I am applying the different aggregate functions for different queries, and it will retrieve the data after calculating the function value. So this is how we can work on different aggregate functions. Now the next step is scalar functions. There are some thousands of functions, scalar functions present in the SQL Server. That is system given functions. Okay, whenever you define any database, whenever you create any database, all these functions are built-in functions. These functions will come as part and parcel of the new database creation. So mainly there are, the figure is pretty big. There are so many functions. Mainly they are categorized into numeric and the date functions and the string functions and system functions, and finally metadata functions. Actually, you don't need to worry much about these two. So you need to have a basic idea about numeric functions, date functions, and string functions. Okay, now let me comment it out. This is one way to comment the code, which is in multi-line. Okay, now let's start with, there are so many functions for each category. That is, for numeric there are so many, for datetimes there are so many, and I don't think that we need to go for each and every functions that are present in the different categories. So let's go with date functions in this session. Date functions are pretty important one that you need to know whenever when you want to work on SQL Server part. Okay, the first and foremost function you need to know in date category is date functions. Let me name it the first and foremost function you have to look at is get date. Okay, get date will not take any parameter value. Get date will simply return the current server date and time. So I am executing these queries in a SQL query window in this particular computer, and in other words in this particular server. So what it will do is, it's a simple select get date. What it will do is it will return the server date and time. If you see, it is 10:10 on 12/14 to 4th of December 2012. You can see the same date and time it is displaying. So get date is used to you get the system date and time, and this is how you can use the function get date. And you can use the function wherever you want. It is not like a simple select. For example, let me copy the same from leave details. I'll leave a leave details. So what this one is going to return? This is going to return get date value for each and every row that is present in the leave details. In leave details we have 8 rows. So that is why it is returning 8 rows, and each row it is getting the get date function value. So if you see here, get date comma is approved. It is gonna get, sorry, I have not executed the full query. It is gonna get current system date and time for each row, and also the is approved value. This is how you can use the get date function in wherever you want. Even you can use the get date function in insert statements, like insert into leave details values. I don't know what are the columns present in this table. Let me go for select star. So I have all these columns. Leave ID is the first one. let me make it as 9 comma leave from, I'll simply give get date comma leave to, I'm giving get date comma number of days, it will be 1, is approved is 1 is y, sorry, it is a string value, so it should be in single quotes comma approved by employee ID, let's say 4 comma the person who applied is employee ID 2. So I'm using getDate function for inserting the data, and the row is inserted successfully. You can see the same here by executing this query. You can see newly added record here. The ID 1, the system time and date and time is taken, and the system date and time is taken, which I passed using getDate function. So this is how you can use these functions wherever you want. The function, any function, not only these functions, any function you can use in select statement in the list of columns, or simply select, or just like here, and using in insert statements or in update statements or in where condition, wherever you want. So this is the advantage of using functions, and this is about getDate function. Now let's see the second one, that is date add function. This is very important one, date add function. So what this date add function will do, I'm not gonna do anything here. I'm gonna get let me take the same query. I'm taking system date, this is the system date, and I'm not going for this is approved part. I'm taking leave from comma leave 2 columns. I'm getting 3 different date columns here. Okay, this is the current system date, this is leave from, and this is leave to. Now observe it very carefully. This is current date and time, right? I'll name it as current date. So it is executing fine. This is current date, and this is leave from, and this is leave to. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna add one more set of same columns. Let's say, let me start with leave from. Leave from. Okay, so here I'm gonna use date add function. Before going to this query, date add function, let me write the syntax here. Date add, and you have 3 parameters. The one is what you want to give, I mean what units, like dates or months or years. You will come to know when we see an example. And the second one is the number. Okay, how many number of days or how many number of months you want to add, and finally the date value. To which date value? If you see this, add the date. If I give days here, okay, add this many days to this date, this many months to this date, this many years to this date. Let me show you an example. First, let's start with simple example. I don't want to start with a complex one. Select get date, this function, you know what it returns. This returns the current system date and time. So this date value is this one, right? This get date function is returning the some date value. So this will be third parameter of my date add function. Date add of, I want to add days. So D is the code for days, and I want to add 10 days to this particular date. Fine. Now these many number of days to be added to the system time. If you see the date, it is showing as 14/12/2012. What I've done, I've added 10 days to get date function. Get date will return some date, that is 4th of December 2012. For that I'm adding 10 days using date add function. Now what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna change it to months. You can see all the different things that you can use: minutes, microseconds, milliseconds, or hours, weeks. You can add anything you want. Whatever it is showing here, you can add anything you want. Okay, you can select month if you want to add months to the 10 months to the date. So it is showing as 4th of October 2013. So what it has done, it has added 10 months to the system date. So third part, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add year. You can see the year here, and I want to add minus 10 years, not plus 10 years. So what will happen? It will take me back to 2002. Why? Because I asked the server to add minus 10 years. So it will go back. Now I'm taking the leave from, and for this leave from, I'm taking date add function. I want to add days. This is fine, and the number of days is 15 to the leave from. So new leave from column, this one. Now let me execute. You can see this is the existing leave from, that is 23/11/2012. It has become 8/12/2012 after adding 15 days. And after adding 15 days to this date, it has become 7/1/2013. So instead of days, if I give as year, Y is also for year, YY is also for year, YYY is also for year, or YEAR. All the codes are for year. If I give year, oops, sorry, not Y, 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 Y. My apologies for this. So you can see this has added 15 years to this leave from date, and it has become 2027. So next what I'm gonna do to test the same, I'm adding the same date add function, but not years this time. I'm adding months to leave from, sorry, leave to. This one will become new leave to. A new alias column I'm giving. I should not have the same column names, right? If you see, for this one 15 months added, for this leave to, this is 15 months added, and for this leave from, 15 years added. So this is how the date add function works. Date add function and get date function, wherever you want, I mean whenever you want to add, whenever you want to get the system date, and whenever you want to modify the date. So you can play with the dates using date add function and even with the get date functions. Let's see the next one, date diff. The name itself is saying what it is gonna do. It is gonna give the difference between two dates. So the function syntax is like this: what item you want to get, like day or month or year, what you want to get, what difference you want to get, difference on which units you want to get. Okay, this is the first one. We'll talk about the units, whereas the first one is from date and the second one is to date. Okay, and if you see here, let me show you an example. Select date from, comma, date to, comma, from leave details. I think sorry, it is not leave from, I think it is leave, sorry, date from, it is from leave from, and it is leave to. So yeah, this is the leave from column and leave to the column that I have in the leave details table. Now what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna apply the date diff function for these two dates. So here leave from and leave to, and date diff of, I want to get the days wise difference. What is the number of days difference between leave from and leave to? The from column is leave from date is leave from, and the other one is leave to as diff. And let me execute this and see the difference between these two dates is 3 days, these two dates is 3 days, these two dates is 3 days, and so on. It will give the exact date. And if you see, this is the newly added record, the difference between these two dates is 0. Now what all I can check? I can check so many things like months. What is the difference between these 2 months? So obviously it will be 0 for everything. There is no difference between these two guys. I mean, both belongs to the same month, the from date and to date. If you see all these months, this is February month, and this is also Feb, this is Jan, this is Jan, this is December, this is December, this is November, this is November. So this is why the value is coming as 0. Let's go for number of hours difference. This will be interesting. How many hours difference is there? For everything it is 72 hours. For the last one it is 0 hours. Let's see milliseconds or microseconds. How many microseconds difference are there? Difference is there. If you execute, it will give, oops, it is overflown. Let me give milliseconds. This many number of milliseconds difference between the to date and the from date. Okay, the last one is still showing 0. Why? Because both are having the same data. So this is how the date different function works, and this is very useful function whenever what is the real-time scenario where you use this date diff function. So for example, if the difference between these two dates is less than 10 or less than 2 or something, you have to send an alert. For example, you will if you buy a new product, you will enter the details like the product when you bought, like I bought the product on 25th November 2012. The expiry date of the product is 25th November 2013. So what I will do is, if the difference between the current date and the expiry date is 0, that means I should not use the product. So to check the dates, the difference between the dates, it is very useful. And for example, you have to do servicing of your AC for every 1 month or for every 2 months. Let's say I bought this AC new product on 25th November 2012, and the service expiry date is on 25th November 2013. Then I'll make sure by the time the service expires, I will take the service at least once. I will do the service at least once. So which will be beneficial for me. So like this, you will use this date diff function to find out the difference between two date columns. It is not mandatory you need to have two date columns always. Why? Because you can check between the dates, like what is the difference between to date and the current date. So to get the current date, you can use get date function, and here this is going for overflow. Let me go for seconds. If you see this many number of seconds difference between the system date time and the leave to column date. So this is about the, 1 second, this is about the date diff function. We have a couple of other functions like date part and date name functions. Date part function. Let's discuss about the date part function first. So date part function, the syntax is date part of what part you want to get. Let's say day, or I'll call it as what item you want to get and what is the date value. So I'll show you an example here, and you can easily identify what this date part will do. Select date part date part of, I'll go for month, comma, get date, system date I'm taking, and I'm executing date part of the month. So what it is going to do, it is going to give part of the date. What part? That is month part, what I have specified. So this one will return the part of the date, whatever you want. Let's say I want to get year. So what it is going to return now? If I execute this, it will give the part of the date what I am requesting for. Now what I'm going to do, weekday. What is the weekday? That is the current system day, that is 3rd. So the weekday starts with Sunday. Sunday is the 1, Monday is 2, and Tuesday is 3. So the date part of the weekday is, of today's date is 3. And in the same way we can go for the other part, day of the year. What is the day of the year? The day of the year is 339th day. And day of the week, or something is there with the week. What is the week of the year? I think it should be something around 50. It is 49th week. So this is how the date part function is used to get the part of the date, some piece of the date, whatever you are asking for. The next function is date name. So this one will return the character string of the date part. So for example, if you want to get the date name of the weekday, okay, this weekday was returning some value 1, 2, 3, something like that. So instead of date part, if you go for date name, let's see what it is gonna return. So it is returning Tuesday. So this is used to get the string values of the date part. So I'm trying to get the month of the same, and now I'm trying to get the year. So this one will return year. There is no string value for the year, so that is why it is returning 2012. And I'm asking for week, so it is giving the 49th, as there is no week name column. Okay, so this is how the difference between date part and the date name is, both will give the piece what we're requesting for, but the difference will come in how it is returning the data. The date part will return the data in integer value or whatever the integer values, whereas the character string value will be written for date name function. So this is about different date functions with examples, and you can play. I mean, it is not mandatory you have to go for get date. You can replace all these get date functions with any one column and execute the same. For example, leave 2 from leave details. So now it is returning what day it is, the leave 2 column, and it is showing the same. And what I can do, I can change everything and execute the same. Let me execute up to here. Only these two are matter for me. So you can see the first one is returning the dates, I mean which day it is, and the second one is returning which month it belongs to. The leave 2 column dates belongs to. So this is how you can use the different date functions. The date functions what we discussed are get date, date diff, date add, date name, and date part, major date functions. And you will use these date functions very frequently. I mean very important concepts in SQL Server. Okay, that's it. I mean, we have a couple of other types of functions, scalar functions like integer, string functions, and system functions, and metadata functions. And as I told you, metadata and system functions are not of high priority, but we are going to discuss about string functions and the numeric functions, which are huge in count in next session. Okay, thank you for the day.